We all need to have an awesome priest in our lives, don't we? Everyone needs a good priest. I always tell people when they're first getting involved with Catholicism, find an awesome priest, someone you can connect with. But how do you do that? Priests are human beings just like everybody, and some are better than others when it comes to being helpful to people who are trying to come into the church because they're human beings. So we're not all created the same. So how do we find that awesome priest? What do we need to look for? How do we know when a priest is awesome or when a priest is just kind of meh? What do you look for? All right, I've got 10 things that I want to share with you, and I'm sure there are plenty more, but these are just 10 things that have in my life made me go, man, my priests are awesome. Full disclosure, I came up with this list by looking at the awesome priests in my life that I can look at and go, that makes that man an awesome priest. Number one, are you ready? He celebrates the Mass with love in his eyes and is faithful to the rubrics. Now, that's kind of two different things, but the reality is when you find a priest who is in love with Jesus and you can see when he consecrates the host as he gazes upon the host or as he holds up the host and says, behold the Lamb of God, behold him who takes away the sin of the world. If you can see the love in his eyes for Jesus in the Eucharist, you found an awesome priest and is faithful to the rubrics. What are the rubrics? The rubrics are essentially the rules of the Mass, the things that priests are supposed to do, and the laity are supposed to do too. You want a priest who isn't trying to push the boundaries on those things or trying to be innovative or clever. You want a priest that's faithful to those things and teaches everyone else to be faithful to them too. When you find a priest that does that, you have found an awesome priest. Number two, he encourages his people to go to confession and makes himself available. I was at confession recently, and the woman that was in the confessional right before me, when she came out, she looked at me and she said, there's an awesome priest in there. And I thought to myself, well, yeah, he's in the confessional. He's doing his job. And when priests encourage people to go to confession and they make themselves available, you found an awesome one, because too many people have the complaint, and it's a valid one, that, hey, I can't get to confession. There's no confession times available. You hear about this sometimes in parishes that have thousands and thousands of people, and there's like a half an hour of confession a week. Like that's ever going to be enough for everybody. Friends, when you find a priest who says, I'm available, and even if you call him up at a weird hour and he can make himself available, he will do that. If you found a priest that's like, hey, go to confession, let's do this whenever, you found an awesome priest. All right, number three. This is a big one for me, okay? His homilies are centered on the readings. I'm talking about the readings for the Sunday when they're read in Mass, and then a priest gets up and basically what he does is explains those readings and connects them to your life. When you find a priest that does that, boom, that is an awesome priest. Sometimes, unfortunately, you'll find priests that they've got their own agenda, their own things they want to talk about, and they rarely reference, or if they do, it's just kind of in passing the readings. Friends, but when you find a priest who is going to help explain the readings to you and apply them to your lives and show you how what you're learning in the Bible is going to help you, that is an awesome priest, my friends. Okay, number four, he takes time for himself and sets good boundaries. Yeah, this is important. And a lot of people would never think about this because we tend to associate good priests with priests that are always available to everybody in the church whenever we want. At our beck and call, the priest, boom, shows up. Friends, that's a nice fantasy, but priests are human beings just like the rest of us, and they need time to recharge their own batteries. Maybe you've got a priest who is an introvert, and he's spent so much time dealing with people, he's going to need time to get away and recharge himself so that he has energy for the tasks at hand. So you need a priest that can do that. Because let's face it, these guys are overworked. We had our priests over to our house last year, and it took some serious planning to make that happen. And I went all out, man. I smoked some salmon. We had all this amazing stuff. We were going to open up a really nice bottle of bourbon and just enjoy an awesome night. And we were looking forward to it so much. And our priests came over, and within 5 minutes, one of our priests had to leave because he got a phone call that someone was in the hospital and needed last rites. And so he was like, well, sorry, I got to go. So boom, he left. Now he came back about an hour later, but I remember just thinking, wow, is this what these guys go through on a normal basis? They can't even make plans to go visit with people without being yanked away. But that's the reality for a lot of these priests. They're busy and they're always being taken from here to there. And Everyone's always placing demands upon them. And because they don't have families to take care of, people tend to think that they should have access to them whenever they want. But priests need time off too. And a good priest is going to set boundaries. I remember when I was first coming into the Catholic Church, one of my priests that I was getting really close to, I remember at one point in time, I wanted to talk to him and he wouldn't give me a cell phone number. And at first I was a little bit put off by that, but then, I recognized, hey, that's a good boundary that he set. Now I haven't now, but in the beginning, that wasn't something that he just was going to pass out to anybody because he needed to be able to have some protection of his own self. And he set up that boundary that he doesn't give out his cell phone number just to everybody who wants it. Friends, that's okay. We need to give our priests permission to take time for themselves and set good boundaries. So, coming from a person who used to be in ministry, I can tell you this. If you know what your priest's day off is, leave him alone. Leave him alone on his day off. I used to take Thursdays as my day off when I was in the church and was serving as a pastor. And everyone knew that, but it was amazing how many people would still call me or want me to do things or would say things to me like, oh, well, since it's your day off, I knew you'd be available to me. No, that's kind of not the point. So if you know your priest's day off, don't email him, don't text him, don't call him, don't randomly show up at the parish looking for him. If you see him out mowing the yard or whatever he's at doing, just let him be. There was another instance where I saw our priest at the grocery store and I had something really exciting to tell him. But I could tell he was in a hurry because he had someplace to go. And I saw him and my first instinct was to go approach him. But then I thought, no, he didn't come here to find me. He came here to get some food, to go do what he had to do and deal with that. That wasn't the purpose of his trip to the grocery store. So I didn't want to hijack that by being like, oh, hey, Father, let me talk to you about this. Now, if you see your priest in the grocery store, it's okay to greet him and say hi to him. But don't bombard him with your agenda for what you want. Let him be. Let him live his life, okay? He will make time for you, but respect his boundaries and respect his space. Just because he's not married doesn't mean that you can have total access to him 24/7. Okay, I spent a lot of time on number 4, but I think it's a big deal. You want him to be full of energy, and he can only do that when he's had time by himself. Number 5, he's excited to welcome new people. This is a big one, and unfortunately, this is rare that I see. A lot of priests, they just kind of have to run to and fro between masses. But when you find a priest who you can see in his face that he's excited that new people have come and he wants to meet new people and he wants to welcome them and he wants them to feel welcome, that's a good thing. So when you found a priest who does that, encourage that and know you've got an awesome priest because, hey, we want our church to grow. We want people to become Catholic. And if we're telling them or I'm telling them, hey, go find a good priest, if they, and sadly this has happened many, many times, if they've reached out to a priest or tried to connect with him and he's blown them off or acted like they were a bother to him, that's not gonna go well. But when you find a priest that's excited that you want to learn about the Catholic Church and that you're showing up and he sees new people, man, awesome priest right there. Number six, he's not afraid to wear his clerical clothing in public. Now, I know some priests don't like to do that because they're trying to make people feel at ease and they would rather, let people find out that they're a priest through conversation rather than just showing up. And other priests I know, they don't wear their clerical clothing in public because they want to be humble and they don't want people to treat them special because they're priests. But I've also heard of priests who don't want people to recognize them as a priest because they just don't want to deal with it. Sometimes priests in public get bad looks. They get sneered at, or people make nasty comments to them or about them. But friends, when you find a priest who is willing to endure all of that and make himself available in public and proudly display who he is, friends, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, again, this one I almost didn't put in here because I don't want priests who don't do this to feel badly if they see this. But I think that it is awesome when I know, like when I'm out traveling or whatever, if I'm at an airport or whatever, and I see a priest, sometimes that just seeing the priest brings me comfort and makes me feel connected to my faith. I don't have to even go bother him or whatever. But if I do kind of make eye contact with the priest, I always will say, it's nice to see you, Father. I hope you're having a great day. Things like that. When you find a priest who is willing to be a public ambassador of the church, by wearing his clerical clothing in public. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, number 7. This is a good one. He presents people with what the church teaches in a clear and direct manner. We need more clarity on what the Catholic Church teaches, don't we? I mean, let's face it. The world is all messed up when it comes to what does the Catholic Church teach. People are so confused. Even Catholics are confused. And one of the things you hear over and over and over again, I've been a Catholic for 10 years or my whole life, and I didn't know this is what the church taught. Friends, when you find a priest who is willing to share with you in a clear, direct manner, not in some ambiguous, sort of nebulous way to kind of get you to figure it out on your own, but he can give you clear-cut, straight, direct answers, thank him. That is an awesome priest. The priests you want to look out for are the ones that are always trying to sugarcoat everything or blur the lines a little bit on what the church teaches about things. That doesn't do us any good, my friends. We need priests who teach us clear and directly what the church teaches. And when you find a priest who does that, boom, he's awesome. Number 8, he has a robust personal prayer life. Now, I don't know how you're going to know this other than just through talking to him, but all priests are required, of course, to say Mass every day and to pray the divine office. But when you find a priest who loves to pray the rosary, for example, or who you find himself in Eucharistic adoration, when you go in, like our priest used to follow us after our holy hour on Friday nights. And that just always blessed me that the priest isn't just kind of saying, hey, do all this stuff, but he's not doing it, or at least publicly. But a priest who models this and shows everybody and loves to pray the rosary. You'd be amazed. Oftentimes, we run into priests who they don't want to pray the rosary. They're just kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. Or when it's some type of prayer thing going on at the church, they aren't around, friends. When you find a priest who has a robust prayer life, that is a treasure right there, my friends. Okay, number 9. He's not afraid to challenge people. Oh, you want that, believe me. You want a priest who will challenge you. I think it was Chesterton who said, I'm not looking for a church who agrees with me. I'm looking for a church who will challenge me. If it wasn't Chesterton, it was somebody like him. Anyway, my point is this. You don't want a priest who is timid and afraid and doesn't want to rock the boat and just wants everybody to get along and everybody to be happy and he doesn't want to make anybody mad. Friends, you don't want that priest. You want a priest who you know is going to call you out on your junk if he sees it in your life. You want a priest who is going to challenge people who are trying to hijack the parish and to do all kinds of crazy, wacky stuff. You want a priest who's going to say, nope, not on my watch. You want a priest who's going to correct errors when he sees them. You want a priest who's going to tell it to you as it is, even when it's going to be tough. Remember, priests aren't there to be your buddy. Priests are there to help you become holy. And they're not going to be able to do that if they're worried about your feelings or making you mad. You don't want that. You want a priest who's not afraid to challenge people. And number 10, you found an awesome priest when he is obedient to his bishop. And I know that's a tough subject right now because it seems like the fashionable thing to do is to talk about how bad all the bishops are and how priests need to rise up and do all this stuff and challenge everybody. No, friends, priests are called to be obedient to their bishop. That's a vow they take, even when they disagree, even when it's difficult, even when they are struggling. You want a priest who models obedience. If you find a priest who's like, yeah, my bishop says this, but I'm not doing that, that's a red flag right there. If you have a priest who says, yeah, my bishop told me to do this, but we're gonna find a way around that, and we're gonna undercut what he's trying to do, that's bad. You want a priest who is obedient to his bishop, because guess what, friends? He's his representative. And a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. Jesus told us that. So what we need to see modeled for us are priests that are obedient, because we're called to be obedient as well. I mean, how would that priest appreciate it if his congregation in his parish were not obedient to him? If everything he wanted to do, they tried to find ways around it and undercut him. He wouldn't like that either. We need to be obedient people who see obedience and see submission to authority as modeled to us. That's how it's supposed to be. Now, what do you do if you've got a bad bishop? Well, guess what? That's not your problem. That's his problem. And he will deal with that. Again, he's not afraid to challenge people. Maybe he's going to challenge his bishop in private, in the right way he's supposed to do it. But at the end of the day, he's going to be obedient to his bishop just as he has vowed to do. So anyway, this is not an exhaustive list by any stretch. There's probably some things on here that maybe you'd say that doesn't belong on there. And maybe there's probably 10 other things that you wish were on there. Leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear your feedback on this. And hey, here's the other thing I want you to do. When you have a priest that checks some of these boxes, go and tell him what you appreciate about him. That's so important. And when you tell your priest what you appreciate about him, be specific. Don't just be like, well, you're a good priest. No, tell him, say, Father, I just appreciate how you're not afraid to challenge us. Father, I appreciate that you teach us in a clear way. We know exactly where you stand and we know exactly what the truth is. Father, I just appreciate how when I see you out in public, you're wearing your clerical clothing and you're not ashamed. I mean, I think you get the idea. You can go through this list and knock them all out. But when you see a priest exemplifying these or other characteristics of awesomeness, make sure you encourage him and tell him. He'll appreciate that so much, my friends. I guarantee it. And that's only going to encourage him all the more to even be more awesome. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. If you wouldn't mind, please make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Take care, my friends, and God bless.